Blake, what's the most embarrassing thing you've ever said on a mic?
Toby, I had my embarrassment organ removed a long time ago on a buy one, get one with my appendix.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who actually still has that ticking time bomb that is the appendix in me. And I'm here with my co-host who moonlights as a surgeon taking out appendices on a budget, Toby Walters.
I want to say it's like appendice.
I really have no idea.
Yeah, I think you need to research that because that's pretty embarrassing if you can't even say like appendice or appendices.
That's how scared I am of it, Toby.
I get it. So, Blake, what does it take for you to actually get embarrassed?
I have to actually do something that I believe was a mistake.
Okay. And how often did that happen? Because you're one of the most confident, unfoundedly confident people I've ever met.
It is rare, but like, let's say leaving the chip card out of the camera when we're taking photos.
Yeah, that was fun.
I was extremely embarrassed.
Yeah, it was great to do hour and a half photo shoot as Mia the elf on the shelf, and then come to realize that you didn't have a memory card in the camera the entire time.
And I mean, who would not forget the memory card in their camera? I'm sure that happens to tons of people, right?
Right. So, Blake, we had our staff Christmas party, obviously in December, when you normally would, and everyone wins awards. It's, if you've ever watched The Office, it's kind of like the Dundies. We don't call them the Tobys, but that's what they are.
We ought to.
Yeah. And so, Blake, I always reserve the best for you because you always do the dumbest stuff. And I
appreciate that.
Yes. And I appreciate you doing that stuff as well. So one of our core values, as you can tell from listening to the podcast, is that we don't take ourselves too seriously. That's our number 2 core value.
Right behind we are churchgoers,
yes.
Which reminds us to keep ourselves a little serious.
Yes. Now, we're very serious about our job. We're very serious about our mission, but ourselves, we're not so serious about ourselves. So, Blake, you won the award for doesn't take themselves too seriously.
Heck yeah, I did.
And so we were at a local church, and we used their coffee shop for a Christmas party. And I was on stage giving out these awards, and I had a microphone. And so I announced the award. Everybody cheered for you, and you came up to receive it. And you requested the microphone, Blake.
Yeah, I said, because this is very early on into Toby's Dundies. And I said, hey, let me see the mic real quick. And I rip a giant fart into this mic. I mean, giant. It reverberated like what you would imagine Jonah heard in the whale's belly when he was getting digested.
And it was, that's impressive because you basically farted on command.
Toby, my wife has been making me eat a lot more fiber recently. And off mic, I'll tell you a lot of things are happening to me.
So, I think there was a moment of stunned silence, and then the crowd went wild.
It was awesome.
Like, people were crying tears of laughter.
And from the gas smell.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only award, but like, you've had some embarrassing moments, and it was fun to do them on the microphone. I remember just having this innate fear. When I was a worship leader, I'm on stage every week, and I have a microphone in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, depending on the church I'm at. And I would sometimes have nightmares, like literal nightmares. I'd wake up remembering that I had said something on the mic that I didn't mean to say.
Oh, no.
But thankfully, I don't remember it ever having actually happened in real life, but I remember certain hymns, like there are crazy words in hymns that we don't use in our modern day English language. And so knowing that you have to say these words and just thinking like, I hope I don't mispronounce them.
Yeah, especially when you're on a live mic, Toby.
Yeah. And of course, there are some wonderful like pastor fails on YouTube. I know this one story is my favorite one. Psalm 150. They're talking about, praise him with the sound of clashing cymbals, and praise him with the lyre, and praise him. And then at the end, it says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. And so a pastor is just giving the crescendo and all the emotion into it. And he says, at the end, just in his big booming voice, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. But he didn't say breath.
Did he say breast?
Yes.
Well, I'm a man. I got breasts.
So, yeah. He realized quickly what he said, and all of a sudden you hear the gasp. It was an amazing moment. So I'm really hoping for one of those moments for you next year, so I can give you a new Toby.
Listen, all I do is to live my life to get another Toby, and bringing in some people that would love to get a Toby is the Oh man, I'm trying to read this on my outline. I'm not finding it. Here's my first fail of the year.
The executive pastor of ministries and teaching pastor,
Carl Huell.
Yep.
And the worship and creative arts producer, Brad Bramer of Southeast Christian Church. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks.
It's good to be here. What an intro.
Have you guys ever had a, whoopsie moment on a live mic?
Oh, I don't know if it's whoopsie moment, but I have to teach from a manuscript or I'd get fired. I'll just say it that way.
I think when I was in my worship pastor days, I used to make up spiritually sounding words like surrenderance and other things like that.
That's close enough.
Yeah, I like, hey, here's the thing. Words are just made up things. If you say it and they understand the meaning, that's now a word.
Yeah, totally. So, Carl, what kind of what are these dangerous waters that you might tend to wade into?
Oh, I'm just, I have no filter and I am very hard to offend. Therefore, actually, we have a former coworker who now moved away to plant a church, and she was on our team. And in my first 6 weeks here, I got frustrated about something in a meeting and said something I won't repeat because she taught me I shouldn't. And she came to me in tears afterwards and, said, please don't say things like that in meetings ever again.
And now she's in Maine.
Yeah.
It's about as far away as you could get.
Carl, do you happen to be a Enneagram 8, I'm guessing?
Maybe. I've been told I'm an 8-hole.
Hey, I'm with you, brother.
Pinned on minute 1 of this podcast. I love it.
Look, 8s, no 8s. And the other thing I know is lies. So let's do our 5 truths and a lie, our weekly game to introduce the guests and get to know a little bit about them.
Yeah. And these were all supplied by Brad?
Oh, I don't know. Brad, did you send these? Who are we checking?
These are my truths and my lie.
Okay, so Carl's going to play along with us. And Carl, do you have the direct authority to fire Brad if one of these truths offends you so much?
Probably.
Okay, great.
Toby, he's an 8. He can do whatever he wants.
Let's see what kind of hot water we can get Brad to wade into.
So, Brad, you're playing, or Carl, you're playing with us. The 3 of us are going to try to guess the one lie.
Okay.
Here we go.
I'm in.
I have not read these yet. Number 1, my first time ever directing a service at Southeast, our entire video system shut down during a video teaching weekend. Number 2, we have a code name for a staff member, the Russian Bomber. I think we have to cut this. We're going to get flagged by the FBI. Number 3, throughout my ministry seasons, I've held roles such as worship leader, student pastor, connections minister, production director, services producer, associate pastor, executive producer, operations pastor, intern, and class clown. I'm just kidding. I added the class clown. Number 4, one beloved pastor once described their concern for haze by saying it looked like a marijuana party. I pronounced it that way because that's how I bet that guy pronounced it. And number 5, I used to preach 6 to 8 times a year at my previous church. I don't know about that. Number 6, I know almost nothing about production systems or how to make them work together.
I know that one's true.
For real? That has to be a lie.
Look at that face. He's just too pretty.
Okay. Well, does anybody want to claim one real fast? Anyone got any quick leanings?
Carl, we'll let you go first. Yeah.
One lie.
I'm guessing he didn't preach 6 to 8 times a year. That's my guess.
Because you've heard him talk and you highly doubt.
Because it's nothing I'd want to ever hear. No. Well, I know he used to be a worship leader. So you going to worship leader, put down the guitar and then preach? I mean, I'm impressed, but.
Never know. What you guys got?
I'm going to say, like that number 3, that long list of all the titles, I'm going to hope that one of those is the lie. Because that's a lot of titles. Like, Brad, maybe I'm misjudging you, but I think you're kind of younger. Like, there's no way you're old enough to have all those titles.
And I'm going to say the lie is that the video system crashed on his first weekend. I'm going to say either he saved the day or maybe it crashed a different weekend.
I'm totally believing that because I've seen how old our equipment is.
Yeah. The lie, Blake is correct.
What?
I have held all of those except operations pastor.
That would have been the one I would have believed the most, though.
I know, right? So,
Brad, can you give us
I used to preach 6 to 8 times in my last church.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, can you give us a quick sample?
I think you could probably do a deep
Ooh.
internet search.
Yeah.
Some.
Oh, I'll send you my next sermon for feedback.
I've hung up the skates.
His sermon title, Surrenderance.
Surrenderance.
Is there a, I hope not, real reason for calling someone the Russian bomber? Like, does that have some, what's the backing there?
We have, and he's a dear friend, but we have a staff member who, like when Russian, bombers or fighter jets are in international airspace, really no concern. But when they get within a certain mile radius of U.S. airspace, we may send a delegate out to just chaperone that international aircraft. And this staff member, anytime they would make their way in the vicinity, we would just send we'd send some friendly, aircrafts out there to chaperone to make sure they didn't encroach into production airspace.
Man, all right.
Does this person know that they're referred to as the Russian bomber?
I think we broke the news to them. Yes.
Okay.
I like the vulnerability on this episode, because we're going to get into some real things here. That's a good joke to lean into there. So the last one, I know nothing about production systems and how to make them work together. That's true.
That is actually true. If you ask me to build you something, I will fail awful. I'm an operator. And if you tell me, hey, can you build this video system? Not a chance. Can you make this audio system work? Not a chance. I can operate it, but I can't build it.
Okay, so if you can operate it, but you can't build it, give us just a quick overview of your role at Southeast.
My role at Southeast.
I'm going to take notes.
At the end of the day, I lead and shepherd our worship, production, and creative teams. And my role is designed to be kind of a one-stop shop between our lead team and our those three departments. And so those three departments have historically in many churches been the kind of outliers of understanding, and there's a lot of niches in all three of those, and there's a lot of personality quirks within all three of those. And as you could tell by the wide swath of job titles, I have been the jack of all trades, master of none, to where I've learned to produce a lot of people in those areas and get the most out of them, and also build, I think, ecosystems that cater to the individual giftedness, but also accomplish some of the directives of our leadership team. And so I'm a translator, more or less. And I'm a doer at heart, so I love getting my hands dirty and filling in, doing whatever I can do. Leadership is a fun challenge, and I love the chaos, and I love the communication, and I love the pushing through things. But my true love is I love live events, and I love seeing all those three cultures, disciplines, and deliverables come together in live services and live events.
Okay.
Sounds like he was interviewing Toby. That was very official. Brad downshifted if we still had those old-timey cars into professional mode real quick there.
That's right. And Carl, give us a quick snapshot of your background and what your role is at Southeast and how that functions.
Yeah, so I started out my ministry career. I went to Bible college thinking I would be a lead pastor one day, but not sure. Knew I wasn't ready right out of Bible college, had a degree in the Bible. I became a creative arts pastor at a church of about 500, 600 people in Virginia Beach. It was a portable church, so got my portable church experience there quickly. Was there about 4 years, and then Southeast actually hired me as a resident church planter. So I came on staff here under Dave Stone and Kyle Eidelman for about 15 months, knowing I was here just to learn, and then they'd send me out. And so my wife and 6-month-old daughter and I moved to Baltimore, suburb of Baltimore, Maryland in 2008. Didn't know anybody in the state. We had good funding, a lot of prayer, big vision, and launched a church and a movie theater, which had some fun quirks and challenges along the way. Then we were there for about 15 years. Church did great. We loved it. Very healthy church. God used it in great ways and still using in great ways. But we got a sense it was time for us to move on to something else. We're convinced we'd go be a senior pastor of a 5,000 person church or something like that. And then I got a text from Kyle Eidelman who said, hey, I know you're looking for something different. I need some help. Why don't you come work here? And I was like, well, I'm not going to not be a lead pastor, but I'll listen because I have so much respect for you in Southeast. And so I came and spent a day with him. And if you've never been around or listened or read Kyle, he's a pretty convincing dude. And I wouldn't say it was a done deal at the end of the day, but it was kind of a done deal at the end of the day. And came back to Southeast just over 2 years ago. And I'm one of 2 executive pastors we have. We have a lead team of 4 that includes Kyle, 2 executive pastors, and what we call a staff elder. And so been here just over 2 years. I preach about once a month and get to lead all of our non-operations stuff. So our other executive pastor leads, the finance and the facilities and all that kind of stuff. And I get to lead what I would call the fun stuff.
He looked at you, Brad, when he said that. You're the fun stuff.
That's his nickname for me, the fun stuff.
Is it really?
No.
Don't tell him.
It
It
should
is
be.
now.
That's your nickname now, Brad. You're the fun stuff. That's great.
Carl, can you give us a general overview for our listeners on what an executive pastor typically does? I know that can vary, and it sounds like you've kind of divided the role at Southeast in 2 different positions. But typically, what's the role of the executive pastor consist of?
Yeah, the thing that's common in any church is the 2 primary jobs of an executive pastor are to carry the heart of an executive pastor, or to carry the heart of their senior pastor and fill in the gaps of their senior pastor. I really think that sums up what every executive pastor at every church should ever do in every context. And so for us, our senior pastor's heart, I think really you could sum it up in 2 phrases, is be the branch and one at a time. If we have heard Kyle say be the branch once, we've heard it 10,000 times, like Gospel of John, like we're supposed to be the branch. Like that's our job, be the branch. That's it. And in our church, what we do is we try and love people one at a time. And we have just pounded that into our culture. It is what Kyle lives and breathes and bleeds. It's what he lives out. And so it's our job, both of our job, but you asked about my job, to just make sure that heart is in our campus pastors, it's in our staff, that even any systems that would push against that get changed or destroyed. And then the second part is to fill in the gaps. And so Kyle is the heart of our church. He gives us our heart. And what Steve and I, our other executive pastor, try to do is give us the structure around that heart. The last thing Kyle wants to do ever is talk about a system, a budget, a project sequence, keep sharp objects away from him. He wants to focus on one at a time and be the branch. And so that's what he does. And so my job is, to fill in those gaps, whether it's strategy, whether it's leadership, whether it's presenting him different ways we can be the branch and love people one at a time. So that's kind of like the big picture of how I'd sum up what my job is.
Brad, we hear a lot from the church production community that there's often tension between production specifically and executive pastors. You guys are sitting pretty close together, and he referred to you as the fun stuff. How have you guys been able so far to build kind of a trusting relationship that doesn't have a bunch of tension? And we'll get to the tension later.
I think you could sum it up in one word.
What is it?
Moxie.
When Carl and I travel, we always stay at the Moxie Hotel.
Yes.
That's what we do. We've been working together, 2 years?
Yeah.
Just under
2.5
years. Yeah, 2.5.
Something like that.
Or something like that. And Carl is very high structure. And that's unlike a lot of the previous supervisors I've had the last handful of years. And I am probably for a creative, very high structure for a creative, but I'm not at the probably Enneagram 8 previous lead pastor, now executive pastor structure. And so some of that was, we had to build a lot of, I just think, time together. And I'm a big believer in spending as much time with someone as you need to until I can predict what his response is going to be. I very much view my job as removing the obstacles before they hit his plate and before they hit our lead team's plate and whatever else. And that often requires, a 3D view as to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so We went to Wendy's a lot the first 6 months. We were together, and it's important to him to know my story. It's important to me to hear his story so that we get a baseline of, what are we coming in with? What's our previous, experience? What's informing that? And I really try to identify what people's biases are so that I can meet them in that bias and either lead them or vision cast to the bias. And so, in short, how do you build relationships? You spend time together. You seek more to understand than you do to be understood. And Carl.
First, you learn their name.
Yeah. Carl is really high on honor. And I think that's important for me to know that he always has my back. And it's also important for him to know that I always have his back. And so build a relationship, get to the point where you are honoring one another, and let that honor produce a good road that you can exchange good honesty. We'll get to conflict later, but I've told him very honest things about how we work together, what I need from him. He's given the same for me so that we can have a really honest relationship that is incredibly honoring. I think that's really the goal.
I think and he mentioned Wendy's. One of the first times we ever got together, he opened up about the biggest pain in his life. And for me, I think for everybody, but I know for me, that bonds me to somebody. It also increases my empathy for them. When I see somebody struggle or what they carry the Lord in prayer that doesn't receive the answer they want, it just helps me lead with more compassion, trust them more, listen to them more, to know the pain they have in their life.
Now, what happens when the biggest pain in your life is the other person?
Look,
Blake.
Brad said he's trying to keep, sharp objects away. I'm trying to keep sharp objects away from you, but I am that sharp object.
That's a good point. I resonate so much with now. Obviously, I don't liken myself to Pastor Kyle and his level of leadership and vision.
No one would.
Let's shrink me down to like an
ant.
An ant. And yes, very much here at Church Gear, it's keep sharp objects away from Toby. Don't, my chief of staff will even say, Toby, you can just tune out while we have this budget discussion. I know this is boring you to tears, but I totally get that. I love his strengths, allowing him to thrive in those. And that's just going to be good for the ministry and good for the church. And then, you filling those gaps. Carl, one of those gaps I think often for exec pastors is saying no. And I think production leaders often feel like, oh, my exec pastor is the one that just says no to everything. How do you balance that in reality? Especially if you're one exec pastor, every ministry is coming to you with their requests and just helping everybody understand you're not the only one that has needs here.
Yeah. So if somebody asked me that and said, hey, my executive pastor is always saying no, then I would say, well, you're asking too much too frequently. Like you need to stop asking if that's just your view of things. Because I think Brad and other people I've worked with here and elsewhere are good at just making strategic asks and really saving the big asks for the right time.
We did talk about pronouncing things importantly at the beginning.
Yep.
Yes. It's saving it for the right time. And so I would honestly say Brad's trained me to say yes because he makes easy asks. One thing he does is he'll often tell me what they said no to. Like, hey, we said no to the Mercedes version of this, but we need the, Honda version. And here's how much that was that we said no to, but here's what we need. And, that can still have sticker shock to it. Right. But if I asked him for details, he would even show me the details that they actually did it. And I think that is helpful. I think the fact that I was a creative arts pastor, like I got over the sticker shock to things a long time ago. But Brad also casts really good vision, both down and up. And so his team, through his leadership, is really good at being good stewards. I got really frustrated with a pastor friend of a pastor friend a couple years ago because my friend had gotten a tour of this guy's new building. And he said, this pastor was bragging to my friend, the company said this is the second best sound system in the country behind Elevation. And, I was like, why? Like, I mean, if you're Elevation it, okay, maybe, but like, and this was a good church, growing church, good, they needed a good sound system. But one of the mantras my former coworker taught me is 90% is an A. Like we need to get an A. We don't need to get an A plus.
Yeah.
We don't need to be perfect. We need to be really good. And I think Brad's led his team to get that, to have that mindset, that excellence doesn't mean perfection. We've kind of broken that down in our church several years ago because we fell into that trap for a season. And so that makes it really easy. The vision piece. I think Brad is so good at casting vision. He's learned about my personality. I want to know what can go wrong. Like if we don't buy that or if we don't staff that, what can go wrong? And he's really good at saying, well, in the next year, nothing will go wrong in the next year. Mm-hmm. But if we don't staff this in 3 years, I don't think any of the people on that team will be here because we're overworking them and under-resourcing them. And so just the vision thing is really, really big. We also, I would say, a teaching we're just leaning into with our staff that we've kind of been talking about on a leadership level is we believe the way we do church is the adult worship service is the first bucket. And we're going to pour all of our resources into that until that is great. And before we pour resources into anything else. And there's different ways to do church. Like for some people, that first bucket is kids ministry. For some of them, it's, other things, and that's fine. But the way we do church, we're pretty clear about. And so we're kind of rectifying having been too scattered in the past and saying, hey, like our first bucket, we have to give people the tools they need to do their job well and to create that A experience. And, but the team is so good at being good stewards that it's easy to say yes to.
Yeah. Brad, do you almost feel like the favorite child a little bit because that is the clear priority? And, Carl, does that create some tension in other ministries that come with requests and church leadership says, hey, adult worship service is first priority. We're going to do what we can to get you what we need, but Brad's the favorite child.
I don't know that I would say that in some ways because our team really we know that everything we ask for is, this console means we may not get new children's check-in computers at 3 campuses. And our production staff has that awareness, and we talk about that pretty publicly when we're talking about submitting requests or anything else. How much of a priority is this in comparison to other things? Just so that we have the right context. The other thing that we try to be really mindful of is I always want to be outperforming our gear. And so gear will not make us have better output. Kyle, our senior pastor, has gone to other places to preach, and he'll send me, or another executive pastor, even Carl, I can't remember, but, send me a picture. Hey, I'm at this place. They just redid their video suite, check out this control room. And usually my first question is like, well, is their output better than ours? Because, we're still producing 16-year-old gear and doing fine by it. And I want, Carl's been really great about advocating for all of us church-wide to have the tools that we need to do our job with excellence. But gear doesn't always make us operate with excellence. It may just be something new. And so I think we have that tension pretty well. And also knowing that production is we have a heart to support our ministries and every room in our campus, not just our worship centers. And so in some ways, culturally where we are right now, Carl saying, hey, our service is the number one thing is actually a little bit of a cultural shift that we're in the middle of, more than it is something that is beaten into everybody in our camp.
I would say also that, I talk about be the branch and one at a time. And that is so ingrained in our staff. including, production type folks. And so they, to a person, have a heart for the ministry at large. People don't work here to be, you just wouldn't fit on Brad's team if your goal was to produce a cool event or to be part of a big church.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't fit. And so they really have a heart for the church as a whole. And so that helps as well, because our whole team sees that, our whole staff team sees that, feels that, hears that in conversation. And we all celebrate the same things. Nobody's celebrating, the cool thing we did.
Yeah. Generally at all staff meetings, we're celebrating this one story that happened between two people outside of a church service. And, what gets repeated is usually what gets celebrated. And it goes back to the heart of our senior pastor. But
yeah,
I also think we understand the responsibility of the dollars around here. I think our staff and our elders have created so much transparency on the financial end for our staff that we feel the weight of dollars that are entrusted to us. And we know what it costs the church. We know that those are tied to families and single moms and students who are giving on a Sunday morning. And I think when you tie a console back to, can you stand? I think one of our production directors said, everything we ask for, we should be able to stand in front of our church and say, hey, we need this from your money. And if you could tell a room of tithers what that is, then we feel really good about it. And we feel good about not just the engineering or system side or infrastructure side, but we feel really good about how to actually move the kingdom of God forward through technology and through whatever else. And so to his point, kingdom informed production just looks a little different around here, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It creates some unique challenges and tensions, but I also think it keeps us incredibly honest, which is helpful.
I'll add one more thing that I think Brad's team is good at is we want to learn from everybody, right? But I think his team is really good at how do we be Southeast? Not how do we be Bethel, or how do we be North Point, or how do we be, whoever's up and coming, how do we be Passion, but how do we be us here in this context with our history, with our culture, with our demographic. And I think they achieve that really, really well, and don't try and be somebody we're not too, which really prevents us from just chasing things that we don't need to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say that's been a motif on the podcast as of late. A lot of people have said, be your church. Don't be the church down the street. I love that.
Yeah. So Blake has come to me with requests before, and some of them have gone well, some of them not so well.
Some have ended in therapy, some have ended in high fives,
So, it's been a learning curve, as it is for anybody, but he's learning what, when he comes to me with requests, what I'll be receptive to and what will put up my walls. Carl, for you, what are some of those things that, if somebody comes to you with a request, what's just going to grate on you that it's not going to go well for them? And then, how should ministry leaders approach their exec pastors with requests?
Well, I think you have to know the person, right? So I'll tell you what it is for me. At our budget season, somebody presented to me, not in Brad's area, $350,000 expense that they needed this year. And they said, we can't do ministry without this. And I was hot because I was like, this is literally the first time I've ever heard about this. That's not okay. At budget season, we're doing the budgets next week, and you're saying you literally can't do budget without this, $250,000 expense. So they didn't get it, by the way. And so I think surprises is something I do not like. Is if there's a problem that needs to be solved, ramp me up to it, help me understand the problem. And I ask questions not necessarily so I can understand the problem, but I need to ask questions to make sure that I know you understand the problem and that you have explored all options. And so I think, sometimes when, for the person on the other side, maybe asking the XP, it can feel frustrating of what, do they not trust me? If they're doing it right, no, it's not that they don't trust you. They want to prove your trust in that conversation. And so a helpful thing Brad did was last year, he said, hey, we have this failure in technology that could make our whole biggest auditorium unusable. And I asked a couple questions just so I could understand the very basics of it, but it was kind of a financial emergency. And I had to go to our elder board and give them a heads up and, make sure we had some money set aside, but he helped me understand the problem. So I think really understanding the problem, your leader understanding the scope of the problem as soon as they can is so helpful. And I think that's just part of vision casting. Is I said Brad's good at vision casting up and down. And if there's problem areas, he tries to let me know about it as far out as he can. And that's helpful. It seems like we keep hitting money asks, but like if there's a money ask, he's not going to drop it on me like the day before the budget, $1 million ask. Like that's not going to go well.
Yeah.
But he casts vision of, hey, here's something we need to fix next year. Here's something we need to fix in 3 years. Within 5 years at all our campuses, we want this to be true. And, we constantly have that conversation about staff roles, about equipment, about all of that.
Do you feel like in a perfect world, you're getting as realistic a outlook from Brad as possible without getting too far into the weeds? Like where Brad's saying, hey, here's some major systems that I believe are, at risk of failing in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. And here's a rough general cost of what I think, will be to fix them.
Yeah. And we had a good conversation early last year too, about even what the future staff could look like. Cause he, in learning from other churches, he said, here's how many staff these other churches our size have for these different areas. And even talking through what is possible that we could do that we're not able to lean into now was just kind of a dreaming conversation. And we didn't know we'd be able to address that, but it looks like we're actually going to be able to fill a lot of his dream roles next year due to some different circumstances, which is really cool. Every leader has their pet things they need to know everything about. Right. And so a leader has to know, like, I can't do that about everything or I'll drive people crazy, but every senior pastor has those things. Our last senior pastor had his things that are different than our current senior pastor. And I have different things of those than, Brad's last leader. And so I think every person has to be patient with their leaders' things that they need to know every detail about, that it's like, why do you even care about that? Mm-hmm. And so Brad's patient with me on those when I have those things, but we just can't let those things be everything.
I may add, what Carl has actually challenged me with and a lot of our staff with is following the data. And so we have not been huge on metrics or towing a certain metric through to what the actual solution is. And so it has informed my approach, certainly, to let numbers do a lot of the speaking for me. And so if I can say, this is the cost savings if we went here, there's money saved. If I can say, hey, year over year after 3 years, this is how this pays itself off or whatever else, or we're spending this many hours, this many staff man hours performing this task that actually this piece of gear can save, or having to, insert whatever it is.
Staff turnover. You talked about that data.
All of that stuff helps a lot because it is not a felt decision anymore. This is just organizational wisdom at that point. And I've done the homework, I've done the research, I've forecasted it, I've looked back, I've reflected, and here's something that on paper actually is reasonable, is measured, and here's the risk reward. And to what his point is earlier, like if you get in a spot where the risk is total destruction or total win, like if that's happening more than once every 5 years, someone's not doing their job, either at maintaining or operating or getting ahead of those critical failure points.
Something I learned as a senior pastor too, and working with all different types of creatives and people in that world is the leader has to be honest when they're just going to make an opinion call.
Yeah.
That just helps everybody. And like, we know it with the senior pastor. Like, we know, like, they get to choose their opinions, but Brad and I'll have different opinions on things. And if I'm going to play the org chart card, I have to be honest of, hey, this is my opinion. I want to do in this case, I want to do what I prefer. I know you disagree, but it's my opinion and we're going to go with that. And in my experience, even though it sounds selfish, if we don't do that, we're actually trying to argue that our opinion is right. And it's like, no, chicken is better than steak. And it's like, that just goes poorly. It hurts the relationship. And so I think our senior pastor is really good at that, of saying, hey, I just want to do this. And great. Okay. And that's the reason we're going to do it. Yeah. And that's helpful.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it often, but when he does it, it's just clear, it's kind. And so I think we try to do that.
Yep.
And we obviously think our opinions are right, but Brad's are wrong. So it's okay.
But it's the fun stuff. It's okay.
That's right. Yeah. Do you feel like there's a careful balance between crying wolf and not letting leadership know of potential problems? And I think, production leaders can often tend towards one or the other. I think, if they might feel like, I've let leaders know about problems before and I've just gotten, not now. And so what can I do? And they'll throw their hands up in the air, and then a mission critical piece of gear fails on a Sunday morning. And then leadership starts screaming, like, what's happened? And they said, well, I told you that this was going to fail, but you didn't listen. Is there that balance where...
Why don't you tell them that story about Kyle when the thing failed?
Yeah, I mean, so much of it is temperament. And I mean, my almost 10 years here, I mean this, I have been so incredibly blessed to work with leaders who have great temperament. It is rare for people in my position to have never... none of my leaders have raised their voice at me. None of their leaders have ever,
that's something we shall have to remedy, isn't it?
Let's go to Wendy's. I got some spice on that chicken sandwich. So that in and of itself, I understand, is just a significant thing that I can't overstate how important it is to trust the integrity and character and attitude of your leaders. And so my response to what I'm about to say comes so much out of that understanding. If you have an irrational leader, what I'm going to say probably won't work. You have other issues, at hand. 9 out of 10 times, maybe even 10 out of 10 times, it is all about communication. And so whether or not I'm crying wolf usually has to do with how I measure my voice and what things I'm passing along. And, only I can, I think, devalue my and my department's requests or asks or whatever else. If I am not viewing my job or my department or our money as our church's money versus my team's money, like, it's my job to get our team to think church first, ministry second, and to constantly have eyes for what God is doing across the board, not just in one room or in one system or in one physical location where you operate something. What was it? Cry wolf. What was the other end of that, Toby?
Or just sort of clam up and say, well, I told them 15 times before, they don't listen, so just let it fail.
This is what I was going to say. That was the environment when I came into production for a lot of different reasons. But our production culture had a lot of people that were clammed up, and they had kind of resigned their voice to our leadership. This is, almost 10 years ago at this point. They had just said, no one cares. We can't do anything. Our hands are tied. And what I learned coming on the production team is that we can move at the rate that we cast vision. And so our previous senior pastor cared so much about each and every person's experience in the room. And so knowing that value, we needed to meet that concern that I don't want a production element to isolate someone's experience in worship. Mm-hmm. So how do we meet him in that, in that perspective and start the conversation right there? Because it's not usually about haze. It's not about lights. It's about what are we doing in worship and how are we communicating? How can we visually communicate? And how can we have a more expressive time of worship if we were to engage more senses? To people see different attributes of God through video, through lighting, through atmospherics, whatever else. It's not, can I run a hazer a little bit more this week? And I think understanding that value system unlocked so much of what people, I think, perceived as handcuffs was just a pretty large communication barrier.
Yeah.
Within a reasonable, like, temperature and cultural system. I understand some people, their preferences is no, 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 no. I'm blessed to not work in that environment, but I also understand some people are.
Yeah. And what's the story of system failure that you're conveniently trying to avoid?
Oh yeah, that. So I said my first time, our previous video director took a new job, so I was first week on the job, first time I ever directed, ever. And his video teaching weekend, we didn't have somebody on backup. The entire clocking system failed, which took out our stream, video sermon, lyrics, everything in the room, total absolute catastrophe. I'm like, well, I need to call Kyle, our senior pastor, and just let him know what happened. And I said, hey, I know we spent all this time doing this, had a failure, turned out to be a clock thing. We probably could have caught it, but we didn't know it was, bugging out. We're going to stay here till it's resolved. And he said, well, I know that bums you guys out so much more than it bums me out. Don't sweat it. I know you guys are on it. I trust you. Let me know if you need me. And that, that's about as worse of a fail as I could imagine. Because the whole service went down. You lose IMAG in the room. There's about 5,000 people staring at blank walls. You lose lyric support and you lose your sermon. And having a temperament of, I trust you, you got it. What we all felt after that was more responsibility, but we didn't feel pressure or guilt or shame. And so that's why the culture and temperament of your leadership matters, is because I want our team to feel the responsibility. I don't want us to feel pressure. Responsibility, the weight of stewarding the ministry, the weight of stewarding our area, the weight of stewarding technology, that's really serious. The weight of, fear of failure does not get us down the road. Responsibility and stewardship does.
I am worried, if that's the right word, that you might be getting a lot of resumes after this episode, because that sounds like a delightful environment to work in where your leadership has your back and they will support you even when things go wrong because they trust you and what you're good at. I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah, I literally mean it. I understand how rare that is, and I'm not selling smoke here, I promise.
I think it is important for us in church world to constantly figure out a way to look behind the curtain at other places. It's so easy for me to get Instagram envy, and I remember going to a conference of a well-known church a few years ago, and I was so excited, and it was a packed auditorium, and the senior pastor said, hey, just so you all know, at our other campus that wasn't online yesterday, that you all didn't see the cool crowd shot of, we had 900 empty seats in a 1,200 seat auditorium. And I was like, thank you. I really needed to hear that, because that's how my second campus was yesterday too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blake, how many times have I ever raised my voice at you?
Toby,
I don't think I've ever raised my voice in my life.
It's not. Yeah, it's not within an Enneagram 7, Wing 7 to yell at me, which is nice. Although there's probably like a couple times, Brad, where you were talking about in that story where, I don't know about you, you almost want them to yell at you so you can feel like you didn't mess up. But man, what a good leader move to just call you to hire rather than to beat you down. And so, yeah, you've got a good temperament, Toby.
And so from the XP creative conversation again, I've heard it said that a good leader, they're predictable in their emotional response. And that's definitely true with Kyle, but that's also true with Brad. And so he doesn't take me on his emotional roller coaster. And that's one reason it's easy to lead him, because, we've all worked with coworkers or boss or people we've led who do that. And it's like, okay, I'm getting sick right now. I'm going to jump off.
Yeah.
You, good luck with that. But one thing we forget in church world is when Jesus redeems us and saves us, it's not just like of our sin, like we think like anger or lust or greed. We've also been taught sinful ways to communicate. And our communication is one of the biggest ways that God sanctifies us over time. And so, having the courage to speak up because maybe in my sin, I just got insecure because I didn't have security in Christ, or having the confidence in my identity to not have to steamroll somebody to make up for my insecurities as a leader, all that goes back to scripture. I mean, I know we're talking about this relationship, but it really is, I think working in a church puts your sanctification on steroids. Because you care so much about the mission of God. I mean, you care so much about the kids' event. You care so much about the angle of the lights. You care so much about the parking lot, that every conversation has more emotion in it, because it's like, we think there's heaven and hell here. And we have to recognize that and let God, work on us strategically through leadership resources, through scripture, all of it, so that we're communicating well, because that's really a lot of what we're just talking about here is my identity in Christ, or is it in the service? Is my identity in my sermon, or is it in, what God has done for me and the fact that my wife's going to still love me when I go home if my sermon stinks?
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to shift gears slightly. I know a church of your size, like $1 million production project is not, I'm not saying it's common, but it's also probably something that happens every handful of years. And working with an integrator that you trust is a very important part of that. I know you guys work with a few different integrators, HouseRight being one of them. We love those guys. How important is it to build a trusted relationship with an integrator? And from both your perspectives, who gets to decide who you're working with?
HouseRight is awesome. And Matt McKay and their entire team have been, we very much feel like they're an extension of our staff, because we couldn't do what we do without them. They support nearly every one of our campuses. They have built so many of our campuses with us. And we were on a trip with them this last weekend, looking at how we need to keep moving forward. And so having a trusted integrator that is, for us, they're just 60 miles down the road. So they're in state, which is a huge blessing. And a lot of their team specifically are guys who are from full-time church work. And so they get the heart of the local church, they get church ministry, and having now, we've done a lot of projects with them the last 4 or 5 years. They now really get our value system, and they understand how we do things, and we understand how they do things. I feel like in some ways we end up making staffing decisions to make their life easier just as much as they have made some organizational shifts to make our life easier, because we feel burdened to make their life enjoyable working with us as much as, they want to provide really good support. So I'd say having an integrator is a huge win. I will also say we went through a lot of different integrators before we, I think, had a partner that the width of our church enjoyed and loved and trusted working with. There are some people who our production staff may love, but our facilities staff or our support staff or finance team, it's a headache. And so finding a partner that I think works for the whole of your church, not just one arm, is a huge piece. And I think having an integrator that understands the heartbeat of your ministry and isn't going to sell you on, the gear or the tech side, but they're going to put the ministry first, because Matt and the entire HouseRight team understands that these are ministry dollars. They're not, we're not selling t-shirts to pay for buildings here. It's tithe money. And I think that's just it's a huge bit to learn.
Yeah. I've been to hundreds of churches, some of which I remember specifically, they talked about the integrator they work with, and I asked, why did you go with them? And they said, it's because our XP had a previous relationship with them, so we go with them. And I've heard terrible stories of production leaders taking kickbacks from integrators to, decide on them. How do you guys, handle that sort of negotiation or agreement on which integrator you're going to use?
I mean, no one's taking kickbacks here. There's some good food.
Sounds like you gave me something we need to look into on this podcast.
The fun stuff.
Yes.
Where do you think that nickname came from?
Carl trusts a lot of our team. I think that's a really important thing. If for whatever reason I came to Carl and I said, hey, I feel like we need to make a move, shift from here to here, he's going to ask questions, like he said, and make sure that I know what kind of decision I'm making. And he may have an opinion, and he may want me to talk with another arm of our church to make sure that I'm not making a decision in a vacuum. But I think he's also seen the fruit in walking into our last campus and looking at the work that they've done and said, man, this looks great. It feels great. And it met the budget mark. At the end of the day, at some point, if we're all doing our job, if it's not getting escalated to our executive pastor, I think we have a good partner in some ways. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think, I like outsourcing as much as you can in church world. I want to focus on people and really only hire the things that we need to do. And there's lots of different ways to do that. People want to hire different things, which is great. But when I hire someone inside or outside, I want them to do their job. And I try and teach lead pastors this a lot and executive pastors a lot of, hey, you can get in the weeds of all that stuff. But then you're just fire them and do their job too.
Yeah.
That's really what you're trying to do. I learned this a long time ago when I was trying to lead our kids minister and in our church plant. She basically said that to me in so many words, like, hey, if you don't want me here, like, you can do my job. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing right now, isn't it? And so, one thing I think we're good at under Brad's leadership is we let an integrator do their job. And so I think they enjoy working with Brad's team because his team is not trying to micromanage them. Like, well, you hired us to do this. Why are you telling us what to do?
And Brad, do you feel like it's a very dangerous reality if a production leader chooses an integrator based on whatever personal relationship, friendship, references, and it goes wrong, that can do a lot of damage for that production leader and the trust that his leadership has in him or her?
Yeah. And that goes back to, I think, the responsibility and weight that every person should feel when you're spending church money in general.
Yeah.
And we have, when I say we use HouseRight a lot, because we have 12 buildings spread out, this area, and they're supporting a lot more than just us. And so we're pushing them to their limits. But we want to work with people that we trust. We have had some other integrators come in and do some projects. Nearly every time I will introduce them when they're on site for a consult to an executive pastor or to our senior pastor. And so we've had some people, Skylark's been in recently, and, I wanted to make sure that Skylark was able to meet Kyle and hear his heart. He was able to put, some faces to a name and to a project and make sure that really, like, there's some relational equity going on. And that just like that, every integrator is going to come in and feel out who you are. And you should feel out every integrator as well that's coming in, because it's not just about gear. They have to be a right fit for the culture of your staff. They have to be a right fit. They have to be able to think strategically within the dollar amount. And everybody knows how adaptable your church is or isn't. And you're essentially bringing somebody on a pretty large roller coaster, through the unknown of projects and budgets and dollars and committees, and spend as much time as you need vetting them to make sure that they're the right partner. Our production team very much had a conversation that it's what you said, Toby. If this doesn't go well, then that's not on the integrator. That's gonna be on us.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to lead the integrator, but it's also our job to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with the trust that we do have right now. And that's why like the responsibility and the weight of trust is a big deal. And it's something that all of us, really every production leader, should be incredibly concerned with maintaining or receiving if they don't have it right now.
Yeah. Blake, I just need to point out that when I went to Southeast and got a tour of the facility with Brad, I did not get introduced to any high-level leaders there. What do you think that says about Brad's intention of befriending Toby?
Look, Toby, we all have those friends that we wouldn't let our parents meet because we knew that, they're just too much a wild card. No, I'm sure, Toby, your Wing 7 was too busy looking around the church. You're probably having too much fun to stop and say hi to people.
How much square footage is there, Brad? Like close to 1 million?
Gosh.
I mean,
It's close to 1 million.
We're getting lost in that maze, so that was a fun time.
Another thing you can get lost in is tension.
Yes.
We've really been shaking the bushes this episode. I can see y'all almost kind of tensing up just a smidge because we are asking some of the tough questions, hoping to generate this conversation among XPs and production people out there. The last one, I guess, would just be kind of a grab bag of, is there any moments of tension in y'all's dynamic or relationships, any stories you could share?
Wendy's.
Yeah, anything that happened that went down at Wendy's, just so we could learn on how XPs and production people can navigate tension better amongst each other.
Brad, what's our worst fight?
Oh, that's what I should have said.
Yeah.
This was the conversation in my marriage small group a couple weeks ago. It was fantastic. We were eating popcorn for days talking about these.
I mean, we've not actually had a fight, have we?
I don't think so.
We've had.
I think Brad's good at clearly expressing when he's frustrated with me. We were having a conversation about a creative shift that Kyle and I had talked about, and Brad was visibly frustrated and told me why that was a ridiculously bad idea. But he was clear about it. And then he followed up a couple days ago with an email of like, hey, I have some homework I want to ask you to do before you make that decision, which was really practical and really wise. And I was like, yeah, that seems fair before we implement that decision for me to go have those conversations. So that was good. But actually seeing him frustrated was helpful because I thought, okay, this is like hitting a nerve here. That doesn't happen often with Brad.
Carl's end of the year challenge last year was that I expressed my emotions.
Yes.
So I've tried to get better at it.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're a Seinfeld fan where Jerry gets mad, that's how I feel sometimes. Like, no, I feel like I'm just faking it, but it's helpful. I think both of us are very particular people and sometimes in different ways. And we have work to be really aligned on what we're doing and where we're going, but Carl's route to that may look different than my route. And there are times that Carl will say, hey, I want to do this. And, he's got a 2-week sermon series coming up. And he said, hey, can we mess with the service order on this to do this and this and this? Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. So if I have a personal disagreement with that, which he knows that I do, because I'm particular about service flow and whatever else, I can go.
Is he ever?
I can say, I hate that idea. I don't think it'll work. But I'm going to do it half-hearted. And, when it fails, I'm going to say, see, told you. Or, which this happened today, we were in a programming meeting and I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And I was met with a lot of people that I have trained who are like, that's not going to work. Why are we do it? And I said, hey, it's not going to work if we're not going to try to make it work. And so let's do it. Not like our senior pastor taught through Romans, and it's like, that's a disputable matter. And I think having the emotional maturity and the organizational maturity, for me personally, there are times that he may send me a Teams message or a note or a directive, and I may start typing something out and I have to go, you know what, shut up for a day. I think I've sent him one thing and then I've unsent it just because I'm like, that's not the actual response that I want to have. And so I need to sleep on it. I need to sit on it. I may need to call somebody outside Southeast and say, hey, here's my gut. Tell me if I'm wrong. Because I have to protect our relationship from my own frustration, from my own tension. And I think making sure that there is wisdom, exercising a lot more discernment when there is tension is incredibly important to make sure that I'm not dying on a hill that's unnecessary. Or I'm in a support capacity. I understand I lead a lot of teams and there's a lot of people in our department and I want to advocate for them. But I also see him support our senior pastor against maybe his personal preferences. And I see our senior pastor support the vision of our elders, maybe sometimes against his personal preferences. And so when you see your leaders submit to one another and honor one another against their own thing, it also makes, following when your voice isn't the deciding voice, it makes it a lot more bearable. I tell our teams all the time, we follow, but we follow with a voice, which means, we all have leaders, and this isn't a democracy where the votes win. God has appointed certain people, and I believe that God has anointed certain people. And so we're going to follow those people, but we're going to use our voice, and we are lucky to and blessed, to be in an environment where our leaders want to hear our voice, but let's make sure we don't take that for granted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. We actually intercepted that unsent message to Carl. And
yes, we have it here in the same way that you printed out that outline.
Dear Carl, you bald, muscular, handsome jerk.
All right. Well, guys, we wrap all of our episodes on a tech takeaway. And so for this series, it's less technical. It's more of an XP and production person relationship. So really, this is just the cherry on the top of your Sonic smoothie here. Like, what would be your final piece of advice if you were just going to wrap, one takeaway from this episode? One thing you either want to say that you didn't get to say, or you want to reinforce what you've already said, and you're like, that's a really good point. I want XPs and production people to hear this.
Mine would be, as best you can, figure out ways to talk about not work things, just to build some rapport and relationship.
Hello. La, la, la.
You're big Seinfeld fans. So
amen.
I know that Carl, you want to know a weird fact?
Oh boy.
Carl watches Seinfeld YouTube while he showers.
This is a great joy of life.
Yes.
I'm telling you. They have these 5-minute clips. It's perfect.
And so, there are often things that we will see and we'll, like having some experiences that are not just work related actually end up building so much of the relationship. And you have to seed every relationship, but specifically ones that, work will produce some tensions in. Seed that with as much positive reinforcement as you do friction, because you don't have to look for the friction. It's usually going to be there, but you have to discipline the actual, investment between two different people.
That's really good, Brad.
I'd say cast vision. Never stop casting vision. Cast vision up, down, sideways. Cast vision to church people. Cast vision to the board. Cast vision to the senior pastor. About everything. About budgets. About staffing. About why we use this one word or avoid that one phrase. Like cast vision about everything all the time, nonstop, because people just don't understand. They're not trying to be imbeciles. We just forget or don't remember or have 10,000 other things. And our kid is sick and our wife is messing up with her job and our car is broken and it's just life. So just don't stop casting vision.
Yeah.
That's important, keeping that why front and center. I've got like 7 whys to tell Toby after this episode. Cast. Well, guys, at the end of all our episodes, we ask if you want to plug anything. Is there anything you want to point people towards?
I want to point people towards Brad's Instagram because
is it at fun stuff?
It's awesome.
Find me at fun stuff. Cool.
Don't look that up. Don't look that up.
No, you can always follow our church, sc.church. You can follow our creative account, sc.creative. And
what is your Instagram? They should follow it.
It's Brad _Bramer. Honestly, the funnest thing if I would plug anything, I'd say if you're a production worker, figure out ways to network and get engaged, because honestly, connecting to you guys and getting more connected to some of the production community through making content has been one of the joys of 2024, of just feeling like I'm not a man on an island, and feeling some camaraderie, and feeling like I got some foxhole buddies is a really big deal. And sometimes you have to put yourself out there in order to make some friends, and it's worth doing to do it.
Love
The
that.
other thing I'd plug is our pastor's book, One at a Time. I think the reason you got into this is because you had a burden to help people, and we get caught up in the crowd and the show and the product, and just having a one at a time mindset that when I show up, I'm going to love this one person who's in front of me, no matter what else is going on. I'm going to love them well. It's the way of Jesus, and I think it's the secret sauce of our pastor.
Yep.
Man, that's some really good plugs.
Yep.
Some high quality plugs. Brad even snuck another tech takeaway in there.
He sure did.
Very generous of him. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this the series.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake, you know that I've always wanted to create, interests between us that we could talk about outside of church gear. And I would have started with Seinfeld because I love Seinfeld, but you're so ridiculously young. Have you ever even seen an episode
You
of
started with
Seinfeld?
The Office, and I watched all 9 seasons for you.
I advanced in the years to The Office because I also love The Office. So now we can share commonalities about you being Dwight.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, fine. I'm Dwight. I watched the show for you. I did
know.
it for you.
And thank you. And now we have stuff in common to talk about. Yes.
So,
Other things to share, like sharing is caring. So
yeah, and Brad even said you got to, go find that community. So think who you want to be friends with and share this episode with them, and maybe you can talk about it.
And maybe share it with your XP and say, hey, I'd love for us to have a better relationship. What do you say we listen to this together and go to Wendy's?
Oh, I was going to say, listen to this and then you'll approve all of my budget.